Hey, English 1B students, it's Dr. Scott, aka Dr. Doom, writing to your rescue with quick definitions and hints and tools to read what's called Cli Fi, also known as climate fiction, a subgenre of sci fi. Here's 10 things that you can do, my top 10 things that you can do to survive these assignments. It's actually really fun, but if you don't work it, you're not going to get it. Number one, you have to set the scene. You need to imagine a world destroyed by endless, enormous, world-shattering superstorms, super droughts, super plagues, super fires, super floods, super sea level rise, super wars triggered by these super refugee migrations, which collapse whole civilizations, including, hint, yours. At least one of these, and often more than one of these, will set the scene for the whole story. So if you think it's just a rainy day, you are completely clueless about what's happening. Imagine the largest storm in world history. Instead, please, you need to read and reread repeatedly. So many of you get confused because you read the story once and no professional literary critic, no advanced student, no advanced English major would ever do that and try to take a test or write a paper. It's pretty much impossible. It's like thinking you can play Beethoven when you read it once off a sheet of paper. You have to practice. You have to get in there. You have to do it repeatedly. So please, please learn to read and reread repeatedly, and especially learn to emphasize the ending. I spend a great deal of time each quarter, and I love you all, but I spend a great deal of time each quarter pointing out to students that they haven't dealt with the ending. And I got to say that by definition, this isn't my definition, this is the way literature works. Everything changes between the beginning and the end of any novel or short story. So if you don't hyperanalyze the ending, you'll miss the point completely. It's like telling a joke and leaving out the punchline. It's not going to be funny, and you're not going to quote-unquote get it. So read that ending and read it repeatedly. You've got to research the location. If you're reading a story about Miami or Manchester or Montana, those are the first three that we read in this class, and you can't even find those places on the map, you don't know if there's swamps or Arctic wildernesses or cities or what. I mean, if you don't have a clue where they are and what they are in present day time, how in the world are you going to read a sci-fi story about them? So get out your Google Earth, please, and figure out where these places are. Here's a great tip. Compare to Cli Fi movies, because a lot of you have not read a bunch of short stories, maybe any short stories. That's not your fault, that's just your schooling. But almost all of you have seen films. And Hollywood, unfortunately, has given us a long line of often silly but still very powerful Cli Fi films. The day after, Avatar, WALL-E, Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, yes, Lord of the Rings, take my children's lit class, Star Wars, Interstellar, Mad Max, the remakes, Blade Runner, the remakes, the originals too. I'm trying to be 21st century for you millennials, and many others. Here's a quick look at a compendium that you can watch on YouTube that will tell you more about Cli Fi, and I'll just play a bit of it for you right now.
Reduce, reuse, and recycle, or these movies could come true.
We have become a threat to this planet. I don't think anybody will argue that. And this is a warning. A warning.
Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 environmental warning movies.
If we do not act soon, it is our children and our grandchildren who will have to pay the price.
For this list, we're looking at films that feature a strong environmental theme, particularly if that theme suggests that we need to be careful about keeping our planet safe.
To hunt a species to extinction is not logical.
Okay, so we're back. To hunt a species to extinction is not logical, but also to drive a species to extinction, particularly your own, is not logical either. So you can watch that if that's helpful. Search the science. These are science fiction short stories, especially the ones that we're reading. Very high quality sci-fi in the sense that the science is very hardcore and real. So if you Google climate change Miami before you read a story about climate change in Florida, if you Google climate change United Kingdom or climate change Montana or wherever else we're reading about, you will get reliable scientific sources, especially if you're careful in your Googling. And you've got to make sure they're up to date. UN estimates have been massively revised just in the past 2 or 3 years. Massively. A lot of you will quote to me these estimates from 10 years ago that there'd be like 3 inches of sea level rise by 2100. The new estimates are 9 to 15 feet. Get a clue. And that's the United Nations. These scientists are actually the most conservative estimates now. So please make sure that you're Googling for 2019 or 2020. Plot the plot. In other words, can you tell me step by step what is the story, scene by scene? If you can't, how in the world are you going to understand what happens and why? Because you don't even understand at a basic level what happens. Collect your quotes. We're in a college level advanced reading and writing class, and college level papers are based on quotes. So you've got to collect a whole bunch of quotes, both from your research on science and, of course, from your reading of the story itself. Then, hey, here's an idea. Read the editor's introductions. In the anthology Rereading, there are 2, one by the editors and one by the most famous Cli Fi author in the world, Kim Stanley Robinson. And he gives a brief and excellent description, I'm getting rid of this extra "and" for you, a brief and excellent description of Cli Fi, and not just description, a definition which is highly useful to you. He's the one that judged the story. He's the one that picked Sunshine State to be the #1 story in the collection. Why? How does it differ from the others? It does. What's going on? And then finally, this is the test you have to answer right now. Put yourself in the story. Cli Fi stories are written as warnings to you. Scientifically based prophecies of your future, your immediate future. And I know some of you don't think that's what's going on, but the scientists are telling you that that is what will go on. So these are catastrophes that these authors believe, and the science that they read believes will be in your immediate future. How will you respond? Will you respond like the young people in these stories? Will your story be a happy ending, a tragic ending, a catastrophic ending? Why or why not? And that really has a lot to do with whether you understand or get it at all. The joke, in a sense, is on you. We are the asteroid. This is Dr. Doom signing out.